Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Azure Key Vault. So let's start. So what is Azure Key Vault? Azure Key Vault is a cloud service for securely storing and accessing secrets. So secrets is anything that you want to tightly control access to, such as APIs keys, passwords, certificate, or cryptographic keys. So basically it's a central location where you can store your secrets, which is going to used by your application. So you don't need to feed your secrets in your application or source code. So everything is going to control by Azure Key Vault. So Azure Key Vault helps to solve the following problems. So basically there are three services or three options you will get when you use Azure Key Vault. So the first one is secret management, another we have key management, and third we have certificate management. So these three options or the service you can use inside the Azure Key Vault. So what is secret management? So Azure Key Vault can be used to securely store and tightly control access to tokens, passwords, certificates, API keys, and other secrets. So whatever, for example, if you are going to use your DB connection for your database connectivity, so connection string, so for that you have to create an user and passwords. So those username and password you can store inside the secret management, and you can use those variables inside your source code. So you are not going to hard code any credentials in your source code or applications. Next we have key management. Azure Key Vault can also be used as a solution for key management. It means it's simple to generate and manage encryption keys for your data. If you have to, like for example, if you have to encrypt your data disk, so for that you can create an encryption key from the Azure Key Vault itself, and you can utilize that particular key for the encryption purpose. Third, we have certificate management. So Azure Key Vault also includes a certificate management solution that makes it simple to enroll, manage, and deploy public and private certificate for uses with the Azure or other connected resources. So you can use certificate management also. You can import or export your certificate in the Azure Key Vault, and from there basically you can utilize inside your application. So these three solutions we get when we use Azure Key Vault, and it's a completely secure place for your data. Next we have why we should use Azure Key Vault. So first we have centralized application secrets. So centralizing storage of application secrets in Azure Key Vault allow you to control their distributions. So basically you have control over these secrets, like for which user, what permission you have to give. So those things basically you can manage from the single location. Key Vault greatly reduce the chances that secrets may be accidentally leaked. When application developer use Key Vault, they no longer need to store security information in their applications, because they are going to use those variables inside their applications, and all the data, like all the credentials, will be there in Azure Key Vault. For example, an application may need to connect to the database. Instead of storing the connection string in the app code, you can store it securely in Key Vault. Next we have benefit: securely store secrets and keys. Access to Key Vault requires a proper authentication and authorization before a caller can get access. So before accessing Key Vault, you should first authorize or authenticate to the Azure Key Vault. Then only you can utilize these services. So authentication stabilizes the identity of the caller, and while authorization determines the operations that they are allowed to perform. So if in simple words, for example, Azure Active Directory is our identity management solution. So that will allow us to authenticate, but it will not allow to authorize. For authorization, you have to use some kind of access policies or role-based access control, and there basically you can specify what all the permissions you have to provide that particular user which is going to use Key Vault. Monitor access and use. So once you have created a couple of keys, you will want to monitor how and when your keys and secrets are being accessed. So you can monitor activity by enabling logging for your vault. So you can configure Azure Key Vault to archive to a storage account, stream to an event hub, and send the logs to Azure monitor logs. So these basically you can enable these features if you have to monitor your Key Vault, like which people at what time, what they are accessing. So you can monitor everything. There are few concepts or few terms basically which will be used when you use Azure Key Vault. So the very first is tenant. So the organization that owns and administrates a specific instance of Microsoft Cloud Service is referred to as a tenant. So it means like when you create your account in Azure portal, that instance basically by default it creates a directory for you. That is called a tenant. Vault owner. A vault owner can create a key vault and gain full access and control over it. The vault owner can also set up auditing to log who access secrets and keys. So vault owner basically is having the control access over the key vault. Then we have vault consumer. A vault consumer can perform action on the asset inside the key vault when the vault owner grants the consumer access. The available actions depend on the permissions which will be granted by a vault owner. Next we have Azure Tenant ID. So a tenant ID is a unique way to identify an Azure AD instance with an Azure subscription. So basically it's a unique identity you will get with I think 16 or maximum I think more than 16 digits you will get a particular IDs. So that will help you to identify which tenant you are connected to. Now very important questions. Sorry, what is called another concept, we have authentications, because if you have to use any services in the cloud, first you have to authenticate to the system. So for authentications with the Key Vault, you first need to authenticate to it. There are three ways to authenticate to Key Vault. Managed identities for Azure resources. I'm not talking about here authorizations, that is a different thing. Authentication first. So when you deploy an app on a virtual machine in Azure, you can assign an identity to your virtual machine that has access to Key Vault. The benefit of this approach is that the app or service is not managing the rotation of the first secret. Azure automatically rotates the identities. Next we have service principals and certificates. You can use a service principal and then associate the certificate that has access to the Key Vault. We don't recommend this approach because the app's application owner or developer must rotate the certificates. Like very frequently they have to rotate the certificate for security purpose. Next we have option service principals and secrets. Although you can use a service principal and a secret to authenticate to Key Vault, it's hardly to automatically rotate the bootstrap secret, but you can do that used to authenticate to Key Vault. So there are three options basically which we can use for authentication purpose, but it's good if you use managed identities for Azure resources. So basically in our demo what we are going to do here, so we have a .NET program which is in our local system and we have Azure Key Vault in place. Now we want to go ahead and access the secret in our code base. In our case basically whatever the application we have here, that is going to use this secret, but we need some way to authorize this particular local system to the Azure Key Vault. So to access the Key Vault from the local machines, we are going to use Azure Active Directories. So there are two options basically we can use here. First we can create a users in Azure AD and we can assign, or we can basically assign this particular user to Key Vault so we can access. But another concept which is very important, which we have called app registrations. So basically here what we are going to do, we are going to create a application objects and we are going to assign that particular application object to the Azure Key Vault, so we can do the authorizations. So let's see in demo how basically we are performing this particular scenario. So let's move to demo. So I'm on my Azure portal. Here what we have to do first, we have to create a key vault. So I'll hit on key vault. I'll create a new key vault here. Resource group, I'll choose my existing resource group, which is demo. Key vault name, I'll put something demo 436. This should be unique. Region, I'll choose Central India. Pricing tier I'll leave is standard, and all the defaults, all the settings I'll leave it default for now. Next, here we have option called access policies. So here basically, if you see in terms of access, where we have two options: vault access policies, or we can use Azure role based access control. So for this demo, basically I'm going to use vault access policies. And if you see in resource access, we have here Azure disk encryption for volume encryption. So you can utilize for encrypt. We have to create a like basically encryption keys. You can utilize this particular options. So I'm not going to use. So if you see your access policies, by default it is taken my credentials, my account. If you want to add another users, so you have to go here and search for this particular users, and you can assign the separate permissions like for key permissions, secret permissions, and certificate permissions. So I don't have any other user accounts, so I'm going to use mine one. Public access, I have enabled public access. I don't have any private endpoints, so I'm leaving it also default. Next, review. So basically it's validating all the details which we have entered. Now we'll click on create. So it will take couple of minutes to create a key vault. So we'll wait for at least a minute. So our deployment is completed. We'll go to resources. And here we have three options: keys, secret, and certificates. So for this demo, I'm going to use secret. So we'll click on generate and import secrets. So I'll give here name, database password. So this variable basically we are going to use in our applications. So we will fetch the value of this particular variable here. Now we will enter the value. So I am giving simple value welcome. So when we run our application, it will fetch this welcome as a value. So I'm keeping everything default because I don't need any activation date or expiry date. So I'll hit on create. So now our database passwords and its values we have created. So now what we will do, I have sample application code. So I'm open this solution file. So this is very simple .NET program which is going to fetch the values of DB password from the Azure Key Vault. So I'll open my program.cs file. So if you can see here, this is the variable which we need to change. So we have created database password. So this variable we have to enter it here, and next we need to change the URL of our key vault. So I'll go to overview page, and here I will copy the URL of our key vault. And I will save it. So if I'll run this program, it won't work because it is not authorized. Somehow we have to connect our local machine to the Azure cloud services, Azure Key Vault services. So for that we need to create a authorizations. So if I'll run this program, So you can't see it, it's not fetched any values here because we have not set up the authorizations process yet. If you see here, exception handled, so basically it's not authorized, so authorization failed, exceptions is coming. So now we need to set up the authorization process. So I'll go to my Azure portal again. Now what I will do, I'll go to Azure Active Directory and we will use the option called app registration here. So I'll hit click on new registration and I'll give here name key vault demo, and I'll leave everything default. I'll click on register. So this is created app registrations. So basically what we have created here, we have created a application objects. Now we need to create a secret which we will use in our local system for the authorization purpose. So I'll go here and click on new secret. So I'll give the descriptions key secret, expiries I leave it default and hit on add. So the values we got it. So now we have created a secret. So basically this secret is basically only for the application object which we have created. So now there are various ways in which you can go ahead and embed these application details to use it to access our key vault. So I'm going to use environment variables in my local systems to access these application details. So what I will do, so basically these are three variables which we have to create as an environment variable in our local machines. So first thing what we need, Azure client ID. So if I'll go to Key Vault, application overview page, here we can see we have a client ID. So I'll just copy this client ID. Next we need a Azure client secret. So Azure client secret is the one which we have created. So I'll go to certificate and securities. So I'll copy this value. Next we have a Azure tenant ID. So that also we will get it from overview page. So if you see here the tenant ID, I'll copy it, paste it. So now these three environment variables we have to create in our local system. So I'll go to system properties, advanced system settings, environment variables. So I'll create three environment variables with the variable values. So first we have Azure client ID and we'll put the value of this particular client ID. Next environment variable we have Azure client secret. And the last one we have tenant ID. So we have created these environment variables to access our app registrations, like application which we have created. So Key Vault demo is our applications. So now next thing what we need to do, we need to add this application object in our Azure Key Vault. So I'll go back to my Key Vault. I'll go to access configurations, go to access policy. So what all the permissions I need only get and list permissions, because we are only fetching the variable value. Now here I will search for the applications which we have created. So what was the app name? Okay, I forget. Let me open the new tab. You go to Azure Active Directory, app registration. Okay, so our application is Key Vault demo. So I'll search here key. So we got it, Key Vault demo. This is the application object which we have created inside the app registrations. I'll hit on next. Hit on create. So we have assigned that particular application object in the Key Vault to access the Key Vault. So now next thing what we need to do, I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code. So again what I will do, I'll close this instance of Visual Studio because it will not take the environment variables which we have created just now. So to take the effect of those environment values, we need to restart our Visual Studio. So I'll close it and I'll go to solution file and I'll open the program again. So if I'll go here and run this program, you remember we have passed the value of welcome. So we got the value now welcome. This is the value which we have set up in the secret. So variable which we have created database password, and we have put the value welcome, and when I run this program we got the value welcome. So basically that's how you can use Azure Key Vault in your daily routine. So there are various ways you can embed those things with your applications. So thank you all.